How's it going, everyone? I'm Auden Groff, and on this episode of the Untrained Ear, we are going to be digging right into David with his debut record, Withered. So, Withered is a fantastic introduction to David on a more lengthy album style project release. Obviously, David has had releases before and is touted for having a very nice and quick break onto the scene. Gone are the days where we are producing music from our sister's closet with the medium of a literal iPhone. Now we are putting out studio work and we are going all out. We are taking risks. In fact, that is really the theme of this album. Although the lyricism is focused more romantically, I believe, and this is speculation, I do not have anything to back this, but a lot of the lyricism nods towards, I believe, illusions of risk taking and love being more musically inclined as well, as this is a big step forward for David. And with a debut album comes a lot of putting yourself out there and the fears and anxieties that come with rejection from the mainstream audience that he's very clearly targeting. And yeah, this is a big move. The genre is alternative drift pop. It's very dreamy. I get tones of The Weeknd. I get tones of Ed Sheeran, Troye Sivan. It is very at home with those artists and that kind of. Again, I just want to go back to like a dream pop kind of sound. And this record is mixed very well, though admittedly a little safe at moments, as you can tell that David is really targeting those for radio production gurus who I think he wants to be on, a viral TikTok video or maybe even on the radio itself. And while that is definitely good for growing an audience and everything, it takes away from the riskiness factor of the album, ironically enough. And so it does lose some points for that in my mind. But hey, it's a debut record. You want to establish yourself. I get it. What carries this album, in my opinion, absolutely is David's stunning voice. This guy is a singer and he is seamless in his transitions, particularly from his high notes, which are wonderful in and of themselves, to his transition to falsetto. It is heavenly and it is just smooth as butter. And the way in production that he is able to harmonize with that and synergize with that, and he quiets everything down, and you hit this just silence in just the right way. Maybe not silence, but quiet in just the right way to just amplify that falsetto. And it's just heavenly. And it just works and it's good and it punches home the right way. It's very Troye Sivan, very Ed Sheeran, classic Ed Sheeran at least. And it hits home. The pacing is phenomenal in this album. In fact, the second leg of the album, there's an intermission that hits right about in the center. And the second leg of the album is just, I was blown away. Um, there is just, the peaks are up and they're high. And it's like a roller coaster, and you're at the top of these mountains, man. And then the valleys are so low, and you crash and you fall, and the tracks are inserted and they're intentional, and everything is this journey, and it's linear, and you're following, and it's so good and it's so thematic, and I just was so impressed. Like I said, this album is about risk taking, and while it is safe in a lot of ways and catered to a much more generic audience than I would have loved, I think it follows this coherent narrative, and I think that it nails home absolutely what it's trying to do, and I'm impressed. Uh, as far as looking into some tracks that I think are worth mentioning, Friend Again is a song about taking risks. It's a bold step forward. This track is very punchy. It's dramatic. It's got these instrumental crescendos in the chorus that punch with soaring vocals that accompany by David. There's this nice, it's just this nice, like, soaring piece with a good message that is extremely replayable. This is definitely the TikTok trend song of the album. I think that if he's looking for like the single piece here, this is the one that I think will be it. That is going to catch fire if it does, and that he's going to hit big with. And then what I really want to spend time on is that second leg of the album. Right after that intermission, you get "Is This Really Love?" Okay, and this album is laid out for you in the formula of what you think you're getting is romantic ballad. You have this like crescendoing, soaring acoustic chords on guitar. You have the rolling drums, okay? You have the falsetto transitions, and he's hitting you with the "Is this really love?" and it sounds like glitzy, and then you're listening to the words, right? And what the song really is. And he's taking a step forward, and he's actually he's actually confronting his partner, and he's saying, "You don't say you love me." And it's this climax of emotion. He's on top of the mountain, and he's bought into this relationship, and what he wants is the buyback from the partner. And everything can be stagnant, and it can be where it is, but he wants more than that. And David knows love is about risks. Is this really love? Is there a chance for it to be reciprocal? Is there a chance for this relationship to go to the next step? Tell me now, or cut the cord. Because if this isn't love, we're wasting time. So if we're just going to do this, if we're just going to be in stagnation, I don't want to do that anymore. So is this really love? Tell me right now. Say it. And you hit this crescendo, and you're at the peak, and you're at the climax of the entire album, and you're waiting with bated breath. And then the track ends, and where did it go wrong? The very next track. And you have it in the title. And like Icarus, you plummet. And you fall into the valley. We take a risk, and it fails. And there's this slow, mournful guitar with pacing drums that are heavy, and they're sluggish. And he's in this lower voice, which he doesn't do for like most of this album, but he's low. And he wallows, and he's like heavy and mournful and brooding, and talking about how he's fixated on. He kind of knew it. He was kind of aware, but then he breaks the mold. And for the first time on the entire record, he hits a flow. Out of nowhere, he raps, which is not something that I was expecting given the alternative dream pop vibe we were getting from here. Didn't see a rap coming, but we get a rap flow. And we're talking about moving forward, no longer needing the love. We're ready to climb the mountain again, to move on. And boom, what are you waiting for? Our pace picks up. The drums are rolling again. The guitar is bopping, jumping. We're not quite in falsetto right away, but in the verse, we're hitting some high notes. Lyrically, we see this potential opportunity for connection. And life is about risk. Love is about risk. So what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Life is about risk. Love is about risk. And I think what he's also saying beneath it all is music is about risk. And so you get this really nice instrumental narrative. These 3 tracks illustrate that, and I think cohesively through the album you get these, like, this is what I'm talking about. You get these like crescendos and you get these valleys, and it's just this really cool dynamic experience throughout this whole thing. And it's just awesome. And it's this next level thing that you don't expect for a debut album from some guy named David. I'm about it, man. However, I do have criticisms. David is early in his career and he has a lot of promise. However, this album, sonically, I will say it, it is very safe. It is clear what his goal is, in my opinion, and it is that he wants to be able to let his music land into a trend. I think he wants to either be on the radio or he wants to be hitting a TikTok trend with some of these songs. Strategically, it's smart because virality equals getting your music out there, and it equals growth. It just makes sense from a formulaic perspective and from a brand perspective. Where it deducts points from me is from a creativity perspective. Because this album had a ton of creative potential. When you talk about the narrative and the linear progression, the peaks and the valleys, the love narrative, and if I'm right, the music narrative that we had going here, we could have doubled down on that. We could have had more. We could have introduced some other instruments, played around with that maybe. But a lot of the tracks, especially when you get to like the high highs and the low lows, they do sound a bit samey sonically. Not to say that like they sound exactly the same from track to track, but like in terms of instrumental choices, progressions, yeah, they get a bit samey. You kind of know what you're getting. I think a lot of it's going to come with musical maturation. I'm not worried. There's a lot of room for potential and for growth with David. This was an unbelievable showing, I think, for a debut record. It was intensely commercially appealing, as if I haven't prattled on about that for who knows how many minutes at this point. This album is addicting. It's replayable. I've hit it a lot more times than I thought I would, and there were a lot of good records this week. Yes, it's minorly flawed, but there's a clear potential for growth. So, when I think about my baseless rating for Withered, I'm going to have to hit it with a succulent 7.